Infinity is a deck based around the gimmick of not having any cards in your hand. The monster and spell trap effects only activate if you have exactly 0 cards in your hand. And this deck is really good in the past. And because of their soft once per turn effects, you can use them a lot of times during a single turn, and you can build crazy boards with their card effects. So the deck has received a nerf in the Limit 1 of Infinity Launcher and Transmodify, and the deck is still playable. Even though it's a bit less consistent, we still have access to Sage and Downbeat as options to go through our deck, and Garbage Lord, which helps us trigger our skill. So let's go through the cards one by one. First off, we have Infernity Archfiend. This is our main searcher. It is a effect that you can activate a lot of times during a single turn because it is not hard once per turn. All of your monster effects are not hard once per turns for the older Infernity cards. The newer ones like Sage are hard once per turns, but you don't really need to use that effect multiple times. Anyway, Archfiend can search a card, an Infernity card, when it is special summoned if you have no cards in your hand. This effect will only activate if you have no cards in your hand on resolution. So if you have 2 Archfiends that you summon in the same time, you cannot activate both of them, because as long as you have the card that you searched from the first one, the second one won't resolve. And it also has an effect to special summon itself if you draw into it and have no other cards in your hand. And this triggers if you activate the Magical Mallet and return your entire hand and then draw into your Archfiend. Even though you have other cards that you draw, you can still special summon this card because it just works that way. Anyway, Necromancer, when it's normal summoned, it changes to defense, and if you have no cards in your hand, you can, once per turn, special summon an Infernity monster from your graveyard. It is a soft once per turn, so you will be able to activate this effect multiple times if you send it to graveyard and then summon it back. Next is Mirage. You cannot special summon this card from your graveyard, but you can special summon this card from your deck with an effect like Downbeat, or from your hand if you draw it, and if you have an effect to special summon from your hand, you can special summon a Mirage. But most of the time, you will be just sending this card to your graveyard using, let's say, a Sage, or sending from your hand to the graveyard with something like a Launcher, because you can copy the second effect by your Synchro Monster with your 100 Eyes Dragon, but we'll talk about that later. The effect it has on field is to tribute itself to summon 2 Infernity monsters from a graveyard. So most of the time you will be summoning 1 Archfiend plus 1 Necromancer, and then your Necromancer will be able to activate its effect to bring back another Infernity monster. So you're bringing back 3 Infernity monsters with a single effect. Garbage Lord, you can special summon this card by paying 2,000 life points, and it also has a restriction where it cannot be used as an Ixes material instead, and you can only use it as a material for a Dark Ixes monster, but that doesn't really matter because we're not going to do that. Instead, we are going to use it to trigger our skill. The Fleeting Hand can be used when your life point is at least 2,000 less than your opponent. You can return 1 to 3 cards from your hand to your deck, and depending on the number of cards you returned, you can activate one of the following effects. If you return 1 card, you can place an Archfiend on top of your deck. If you return 2 cards, you can play a Necromancer from outside your deck, and if you return 3, you play a Launcher from outside your deck. For the vast majority of cases, you will be activating the second effect to place a Necromancer, and what that allows you to do is if you have a Archfiend in your graveyard, let's say you send it with a Sage, you will be able to immediately special summon it using the free Necromancer that you get with the skill, and that will start your combo by having Archfiend search you your Launcher, and Launcher summon back your monsters later, and yeah. For tuners, we're playing 1 copy of Infinity Avenger. Its effect does not matter. We're playing this card because it is the only level 1 Infernity tuner that we have in the game. And why we need a level 1 tuner? It's because of level 8 Synchro. 100 Eyes Dragon is level 8. And because you will be summoning Archfiend plus a Necromancer a lot, you need one more level for your level 8 Synchro. This Archfiend is level 4, Necromancer is level 3, so that's level 7 in total. So you need a level 1 tuner, and Avenger will fit that role. And I will explain why we need to summon 100 Eyes Dragon that way when we talk about that card. For our next tuner, we're playing 3 copies of Sage. This card is really good. During your main phase, you can discard your entire hand. So if you have too many monsters in your hand that you can't get rid of, you can just use this effect and just pitch your entire hand. So you don't have to worry about having hands to prevent your own monsters from activating their effects. Sage has a graveyard effect if it's sent to the graveyard by any means, including from your hand or deck to the graveyard. If you have no cards in your hand, you can send an Infernity monster from your deck to the graveyard, and both effects are hard once per turn because this is a new card. Infernity Launcher, this card is really good, and it is limited to 1 for that reason, because it has an effect to basically discard a card, discard an Infernity monster whenever you want, and you can send this face-up spell to the graveyard and revive 2 Infernity monsters from a graveyard. This is really good, and this will be your main search target with your Archfiend to bring back Archfiend again, and then search another card. Usually you will search your Counter Traps and Infinity Break. Next is Downbeat. This is a really good card that allows you to both send your monsters from a field to a graveyard, because cards like Sage have a graveyard effect. And it also lets you summon stuff from your deck, which is really good. You could attribute a Garbage Lord to summon a Archfiend from your deck, because for some reason Garbage Lord is also a Dark Fiend. And you can also attribute a Sage to summon a Mirage, which is also a really good option. Next is a Magical Mallet, because this deck does tend to break quite a lot. There is no one-card combo in this deck. You need to open with a combination of at least 2 cards. Typically, you want a Garbage Lord plus a Downbeat, or a Garbage Lord plus a Sage, or a Sage plus a Downbeat, or a Archfiend plus a Downbeat. Yeah, you get my idea. You basically always want a combination of 2 to 3 cards in your hand to actually start your combo. So Magical Mallet will help with that. And also, as I mentioned when I talked about Infinity Archfiend, if you use Mallet and draw into Archfiend, even if you draw multiple cards in the same time, for some reason, as you will see in one of the replays, you can summon this card. Even though you can't get your search because you have other cards in your hand, you can still special summon this card, which is interesting, I guess. For the traps, we have 3 searchable traps, Infinity Barrier, and 2 Infinity Breaks. Infinity Barrier is an Omni Negate, it negates any effect, and Infinity Break can pop a card on your opponent's field, and also both cards require you to not have any cards in your hand, of course, and Infinity Barrier requires you to have specifically at least 1 attack position Infinity monster, so your opponent can stop your barrier from activating by switching your monsters to defense, let's say with a Book of Moon, or even something like an enemy controller if they're using it for some reason. Yeah, you need an attack position Infinity monster for barrier to be able to activate. But you can use Break whenever you want, even if you don't have any Infinity monsters on your field, as long as you have a Infinity card for you to banish from a graveyard, you can activate your Break. For our extra deck, we're playing 1 Doom Dragon, it's just really good going second. We're playing a 200 Eyes Dragon. Okay, so this Synchro monster has a pretty harsh summoning requirement. It needs 1 Dark Tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner Fiend monsters. But it has a really useful effect. Once per turn, you can banish a level 6 or lower Dark effect monster from a graveyard, and this card gains that monster's effect until the end of the turn. This is not a hard once per turn, so that's why we're playing 2 copies, because we can summon 2 copies of this monster and you can activate their effects. And the monster that we will be copying is Mirage, because what this allows you to do is you summon Archfiend plus Necromancer plus your Avenger. Archfiend will get you a search, typically you will search a trap, and then you will synchro summon your 100 Eyes. Your 100 Eyes will banish a Mirage from your graveyard, and then it gains Mirage's effect, and then you can tribute the 100 Eyes to summon back your Archfiend, and then summon back your Necromancer, and Necromancer activates its effect to summon back an Avenger, and then because you summoned Archfiend again, you get another trap, and then you have materials to summon a second 100 Eyes Dragon, and then you will use its effect, but because you already banished the Mirage for the first 100 Eyes, this time you will be banishing your Necromancer, and then you'll be summoning back your Archfiend, and Archfiend will search a third card, so that is how you get all 3 of your traps using your 200 Eyes Dragons to basically loop your Archfiend's effect. Next is Hyper Psychic Riser. This is a really good free-to-play synchro monster that you can make with this deck. It's level 6, so you can make it using a Archfiend plus a Sage. And monsters with less attack than this card cannot attack, and monsters with higher attack than this card cannot activate their effects. And that includes yourself, so you'll be careful. You cannot use effect for, let's say, 100 Eyes Dragon if you already have your Sacrificer on your field. So you either summon this card at the end of your combo, or you will summon this card and then not do the 100 Eyes combo. But this is a really good effect to prevent your opponent from activating their big monster's effects, and also preventing your opponent from just attacking over your Infernity monsters because of your barrier requiring you to have a attack position Infernity monster. The attack prevention effect of Hyper Psychic Riser also prevents your opponent from just using a normal summoned low attack monster to attack over your Infinities. And also, if this card is destroyed by your opponent, you can recycle a tuner plus a non-tuner from your graveyard, add it back to your hand, as long as they have the same type and attribute. Sometimes you won't want to activate this effect because it turns off your Infinity effects because you now have 2 extra cards in your hand. But it's nice to have if you're in a desperate situation. But yeah. Next synchro monster is Zeta. You probably know about this card. You can banish itself plus another attack position special summon the monster your opponent controls. It's just a really good free-to-play disruption. Next is the Link monsters. Plus Lumino is just really good as both a generic Link 2 and also to modulate your levels to help you summon a 100 Eyes Dragon by just using 1 tuner and not 1 non-tuner, because normally you will summon your 100 Eyes using Archfiend plus Necromancer plus Avenger, but if you have plus Lumino, you can just use 1 Archfiend plus 1 Avenger or 1 Sage, because you can always increase your levels to make them add up to 8. Next is just generic Link 3s and Link 4s. We're playing Gaia Saber and Agave Dragon. Of course, you should probably play more Nightmare monsters if you have them, or Rastaliger or Firewall Dragon if you have those cards, but this is a free-to-play version, so we're just playing these bad Link 3s and Link 4s. We just want them in our deck to summon to get rid of the Infinity monsters on our field, because Archfiend only activates its effect on summon, so we need ways to get rid of it from our field for us to summon it back with the effect of Necromancer or Launcher, and our Link 3s and Link 4s will help us do that. This is my expensive version. There are a lot of ways you can build this deck, especially the extra deck. There are a lot of different cards you can play, because Infinities can make a whole bunch of different Synchro, Ixes, or even Link monsters because of how flexible your combos can be. But this is my personal expensive Infinity deck. I am playing free Archfiend because you can use Downbeat on Archfiend to summon a Necromancer and use the Necromancer to summon back the Archfiend, and that starts your combo. And also, playing free copies increases the chance of just drawing it with your Magical Mallet. So in a desperate situation, if you don't have a way to start your combo and have only a single card for your Magical Mallet to return, what you can do is just activate Magical Mallet, return 1 card from your hand, and then hope you draw a Archfiend, and if you do, your combo is basically all set. You can start your combo just by drawing an Archfiend with your Magical Mallet. And also we're only playing 2 traps because we're playing better extra deck monsters, so we don't really have to rely that much on the Infernity traps, and instead we can just have better extra deck monsters. In our extra deck, we are playing a lot of better Synchro, Ixes, and Link monsters. We're also playing Zeta because it is still a pretty good level 7 Synchro, even if we have more expensive options. For our level 8, we're playing Void Ogre. It negates spell traps if you don't have cards in your hand, which fits really well in this deck. And we're playing one Ancient Fairy Dragon. So this card has 2 effects. You won't use the second effect to pop field spells and add field spells from your deck to your hand because we're not playing field spells. The effect we want is the first effect. You can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand, and also you can't go to battle during the turn you activate this effect. So what you do with this card is, if you go first, you can use its effect to special summon a Archfiend from your hand, and then that will be able to activate its effect if you have no other cards in your hand. For our Ixes, we're playing one Abyss Dweller, just to counter Orcust or the Graveyard reliant decks. We could make this pretty easily, even though we only have Archfiend as our level 4 monster because of our Puzzlomino being able to change the level of one of our monsters to level 4, and that will allow us to make Abyss Dweller if we really need to. For links, we're playing Firewall Dragon as a disruption, a decode. So even if we can't make Firewall, a decode is pretty good just to prevent your opponent from activating MST or Cosmic to get rid of your back row, because Decode Talker can negate those effects. We're also playing Puzzlomino and a Security Dragon. So this is a link 2 that will be able to co-link to our own Firewall Dragon to let us activate its effect during our opponent's turn. And also, Security Dragon is a pretty good link 2 just to make if you're going second to get rid of your opponent's monsters. You probably already know what the advantages and disadvantages of playing Infernities are, but basically, this deck is quite bricky even before the Banlist, and after the Banlist, it's even more bricky because you don't have access to Transmodify and the Launcher to discard your cards. It's very easy to have too many monsters in your hand and don't have a way to have 0 cards in your hand to actually do your combo. Even though the skill does help you get rid of cards from your hand, you still need a way to lower your life points for you to actually activate your skill. And we only have one way of doing that, and that's Garbage Lord. So this deck is really reliant on drawing Garbage Lord or drawing your Downbeat. Without those 2 cards in your hand, you really struggle to even begin playing your combo. That's why we were playing Magical Mallet to help us draw into those cards easier. The second biggest disadvantage is this deck loses to 1 disruption. We don't have a lot of deck space to play back row removal like Cosmic or even Forbidden Lands. So if your opponent has a single disruption, which they very likely do if you're going second, you just lose. So this deck basically cannot win 99% of the time if you're going second. So there's that. And also DD Crow and even cards like DD Crow are a big problem to this deck. Even cards like Lancia hurt this deck because 100 Ice Dragon banishes from a graveyard. So even if you're going first, you're not completely safe from your opponent's disruption. And yeah, the biggest reason to play this deck is the impressive amount of disruptions you can place on your board just by having a small combo going on. You can oftentimes have 2 to 3 traps set, plus whatever Synchro or Ixes or Link monsters you can make to disrupt your opponent. It's really, really hard for your opponent to crack, but not impossible. So, especially in this free-to-play version, we're oftentimes relying on having just our Infernity traps, and maybe having a Synchro like Riser or Zeta, and these 2 cards aren't that good in comparison to, let's say, Void Ogre, or even like Giant Hand. Those 2 cards negate monster effects or spell trap card effects. This card only prevents monster effects that has a higher attack than this card, so your opponent can just make a big monster not activate its effect and just attack over your monster. Or they can summon their stuff on defense, so you cannot banish your opponent's stuff with your Zeta. So that is the drawback of playing a free-to-play version. And also, obviously, if you're playing trap cards, your opponent can just counter them by just removing them before they activate their combo starter effects. They could use a Cosmic, they could lance their own monster, or they could even Book of Moon your Infernity monsters to prevent you from activating Barrier because it needs a Infernity monster on your field. But yeah, this deck has a lot of possibilities. If you're interested in playing this deck, I recommend you just look over the possible combos and possible end boards that you can make with this deck, and just pick your favorite. There's a lot of other Infinity cards that I am not using that you could use. You could use cards like Wildcat, which is a level 3 tuner that you can summon, and also it has the ability to modulate its levels. You can also play other cards like Patriarch, which is a level 4 that special summons itself from your hand. You could play Infinity Conjurer, which is a level 3 that special summons itself from the graveyard, but it banishes itself, so if you're playing this card, you might want to play some level 3 Ixes monsters, those sort of stuff. You can even play other Infinity traps like Infinity Suppression, but Infinity Break and Barrier is enough for most cases. So yeah, let's have a look at the replays. Okay, for our first game, we are very, very unfortunately going second. This deck cannot win going second unless your opponent has 0 disruption. But yeah, our opponent is playing Necros, so they probably don't have a lot of disruption, and even if they do, it's probably just a single Clausius. And that's okay. That might be a winnable game for us. And we do have a launcher, Downbeat, plus a copy of Archfiend, so we do have combo going on. So our opponent is going to do just Necros things, they're going to make Colossus, as expected. That's the end of the turn. They don't have a single negate for an extra deck monster, so yeah, we could still do that. And we draw Garbage Lord, which is probably our best draw. So we will be able to summon that and activate our skill, putting a Necromancer on our field. We will summon back a Archfiend using Downbeat, get a Sage, normal summon the Sage because we haven't normal summoned yet. We will Sage to mill a Mirage for us to copy its effects later using 100 Eyes. We will Puzzle Lumino, changing our monster's level. Our opponent will negate our Puzzle Lumino. That is really good. They fell for our bait, because what we really want to activate is the effect of 100 Eyes. And now they have no disruptions left. We could activate Launcher to discard the Avenger in our hand, and then summon back the Archfiend plus a Necromancer. The Necromancer summon back the copy of Avenger, and there we go. Here is the 100 Eyes Dragon loop. This loop itself will be able to give us all 3 of an Infernity traps in our deck. And even though we couldn't really win this turn because of our opponent having 3 monsters, it's fine because we have 3 traps to contend with whatever our opponent has during their next turn. But we will be able to activate 100 Eyes Dragon twice by summoning it 2 times. The second time, we'll banish the Necromancer to summon back the Archfiend, and then grabbing our 3rd trap, we'll attack over all our opponent's monsters and pass back to them. They have 2 cards in their hand, we have 3 card set. I'm feeling pretty good. Our opponent will grab a Necros Ritual spell, that's fine. They're going to summon a Manju, will not negate the Manju. That is because the Ritual spells in their graveyard require them to have no monsters to activate their effects, so as long as we give them a monster on the field, as long as Manju is on the field, they can't use the graveyard effects of their Ritual spell, so we will leave our opponent's Manju alone. Our opponent will make a Brionac. That is probably the only thing they can do, because you might be able to notice that they can't actually use the effect of Trishula if they summon a Trishula, because Necros Trishula requires you to have both a card in your graveyard, field, and hand, and because we're playing Infinities, we have no cards in our hands, so even if they summon exactly Trishula, they can't activate their effect, so they're forced to use Brionac, which we can just pop. They can summon Clauselus, but we can negate its effect, so yeah, we just attack, and that will be game. I am going to include a bit more replays than I usually do, because this deck does have quite a few combos even in the free-to-play version that you can do depending on your starting hand. This time we're going first, which is wonderful. We do again have a Garbage Lord, and this time we don't have Downbeat, but we do have a Sage. So we'll normal summon the Sage, we'll make a Zeta, and Sage will be able to mill the Archfiend, and we'll use the Necromancer that we got from the skill to summon back a Archfiend. Archfiend will grab us a Launcher. We'll use the 2 monsters we have to make a Plasmomino to summon, and it's really important that you don't clog your own arrows using your Zeta, so you can summon back your Necromancer in the zone that your Plasmomino points to. And that's really important that you summon exactly Necromancer in that zone, because you'll be linking off your Archfiend and then summoning a Sage, and if you change the level of your Archfiend, you won't be able to have Necromancer to summon back your Sage from the graveyard. And because its level is changed to 6, we can just summon back a level 2 tuner to make a 100 Ice Dragon, summoning back a Archfiend, and then grabbing a second trap. Our opponent will activate Necro Valley. We have to activate Break because Break requires us to banish stuff from our graveyard, so it couldn't activate under our opponent's Necro Valley. So we're forced to pop it. Our opponent will grab another Gravekeeper. He's gonna grab another Necro Valley, but that's fine. That is totally fine. We only need our graveyard during our turn when we actually did our combos, and now Necro Valley isn't gonna do anything. We can still activate our barrier under Necro Valley, and we're just gonna negate his monster, and that will be it. For our third game, we are going first, and our opponent is using Kaiba. I wonder what they're playing. We, once again, have Garbage Lord. I don't know why, but when I was getting these replays, every single game I would open with Garbage Lord for some reason. I've played over 10 games in a row, and every single game I would open with Garbage Lord. I really want to have a game to showcase what you can do without Garbage Lord, and that took way too long because for some reason Garbage Lord is always on my top deck. But anyway, we'll do a different line from last time because we have Downbeat. We're actually gonna make Hyper Psychic Riser instead of our Zeta, and after that the combo is pretty similar. We're still gonna do the Archfiend plus Lumino, changing our Necromancer to level 6. The combo from there is pretty much the same, but yeah, instead of Zeta, we're just making Psychic Riser. But instead of making 100 Ice Dragon, we're not gonna do that, because Psychic Riser will prevent our own monster from activating their effects, because it has a higher attack than itself. So we're instead just going to summon back an Archfiend and grab another trap and just end turn. So we have 2 traps plus 1 Floodgate. That's pretty good. Opponent is going to activate some spellbooks to draw some cards, and okay, they're actually playing Ursarctics. And that's wonderful. That's probably the best deck that Hyper Psychic Riser can play against, because all of their tuners and their synchro monsters have higher attack than my Psychic Riser. So even if they summon the tuner that they just did, they can't banish anything from our graveyard because our synchro will prevent them from activating any of their effects. They're going to try to activate their monster effect, we will negate. That's it. They don't have any cards left to attribute. You have no idea how long I took to get a replay where I didn't open with Garbage Lord. So I decided, okay, even though we drew Garbage Lord again this time, we're actually not going to use it. We're going to shuffle back it using our Mallet, so I can show you guys what this deck can do if you don't draw your Garbage Lord. So thankfully we did draw a Downbeat plus the Archfiend, and that is still full combo. We're going to grab back our Launcher, and as you can see, we drew the Archfiend with our Magical Mallet, and we could summon it, and that's a bit weird, but that is relevant in this combo because normally you won't be able to activate able to summon any synchro monsters, but because we summoned the Archfiend using its own effective special summon, we still haven't used our normal summon. So we can use the normal summon on a tuner, and that gives us access to our synchro monsters. Normally what you do in this combo is just set free traps and pass, but yeah, we are able to make 100 eyes and banish the Mirage and summon back the Archfiend plus the Necromancer, doing the little combo that we can do. So other than having our free set cards, we can also end on a Hyper Psychic Riser. And our opponent is going to book our Necromancer to shut off Negate, I guess. And he's going to Terror Top. This is a really good card for us to negate if we have access to Barrier, but unfortunately we don't. So we're going to wait for them to make their Synchro Monster and then attempt to destroy it using our Trap. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to activate Infinity Break and just hope that they don't have this card. Lance is really bad. If we have the counter trap, they actually couldn't protect their monsters from a negate, from a counter trap, because they are not respondable. But yeah, again, we don't have. He's gonna make a copy of Kite Drake, but he couldn't activate its effects because of Psychic Riser. He's gonna make a second Clear Wing, summon back the dice to make a Crystal Wing. He's gonna attack. This is bad news, even though he couldn't actually activate the effect to gain attack because it has a higher attack than me. He can still negate the Graveyard effect, so good luck to us. We have a single Garbage Drill in our hand, which I guess let's shuffle it back. Hopefully we draw something. Things aren't looking very good. We could at least get rid of our opponent's Crystal Wing, but yeah, they still have absolutely full combo. We don't have anything to stop them. We have a barrier that we couldn't activate because we don't have any Infinities in attack, and even if we put Sage in attack, we'd still lose anyway. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, even though Infinity boards are really good, it's still not unbreakable. So yeah, that's something that you might want to put in mind.